Hi, I'm here tonight with Assistant Principal of Bayside Middle, John Chowns, interviewing him about his perspectives on IDEA. How's it going, John?
Very well, Kyle. How are you?
Good. Can you please tell me what challenges do you face concerning, including of children with disabilities in the general education classroom at Bayside?
Well, there's several things. First of all, when you're transitioning students coming in from the elementary school into the middle school, it's a pretty big shock for the student, first of all, any student, general ed and special ed. It's also a pretty big adjustment for the parents of the students as well. One of the biggest things is terminology. For instance, a lot of times in elementary school they consider things as a pull-out or a resource, and we try to obviously educate our kids in the least restricted environment possible. So it's a lot trying to mesh terminology with the parent, with the student, so that there's a proper understanding of what we're doing. The biggest thing is trying to put the kid in a position where they're going to be most successful. Obviously, all parents want their children to be educated in a general education classroom, but sometimes that's not always a possibility. That's certainly always our goal, is to be able to educate them in a general education classroom. Having the teachers, both in an inclusive setting, obviously, in a model, co-teaching model, having them have seamless transitions between who is the general education teacher and who is the special education teacher are your biggest challenges. You want them to have a lot of opportunity to collaborate so that they are providing specialized instruction for the special education students that are in that general education classroom. So finding that balance of properly identifying who the kids are, what type of services they need within that setting, and then providing a differentiated approach to make sure that their needs are met.
Okay. How do you feel that your staff training is provided in regards to children with disabilities at your school?
Well, I feel like your special education teachers are coming into the job with proper training, obviously, but it's a situation where, regardless where they are in their career, you continuously have to provide them professional development on things that are going to directly impact special education children. The biggest thing I will tell you is properly training your general education staff on ways to effectively reach and differentiate their instruction to meet the special education students that may be in their classroom, especially in a situation where it may not be a direct service. For instance, most of your special education students that have a service for, let's say, inclusion math or inclusion English, when that social studies teacher then gets that student in their class, they're not always going to have that special education co-teacher in there with them. So giving them the tools necessary to be able to differentiate instruction to a level to where they can provide and meet the needs of not only all students, but especially your special education population.
Okay. How are families at your school included in the IEP processes?
Well, obviously, anytime that we're going to hold any type of meeting that surrounds the IEP, we're going to send a meeting notice home and try to arrange that meeting so that the parent can be directly involved. The school that I'm at, we, like a lot of schools, we wish we had a little bit more parental involvement, but keeping that parent informed and providing the opportunity for them to participate is always a focus. And they are a vital member of the IEP team, and we try very, very hard to make sure that their opinion is noted and that we take all the considerations possible. Obviously, we are the educational experts, but the parent's opinion, the parent's viewpoint, and the parent's desires for their child have to be a vital part and have to be included in that decision-making process.
Do you end up having any issues, particularly with parents getting involved? Do you run into that issue a lot?
Absolutely. Obviously, I'm in a situation where, and it can go both ways. You can have the overactive parent who can stand in your way of doing what's best for the child, and you can have the underactive parent who can stand in the way of doing what's best for the child. Because obviously in the state of Virginia you have to have parental approval, basically, to be able to enact any changes to the IEP. So it's very important that you have that. You run into some problems when you can't get parental signatures, obviously, or parental participation. If it's something that you need to change to specifically benefit that child, if the parent doesn't sign, you can't do it. So it's very important to keep them involved as much as possible. And it does, unfortunately, in some cases it stops what the best interest of the child is from actually happening because the parent won't be involved.
Okay. How does the program modify the budget to make modifications to the environment as needed at your school?
Well, in Virginia Beach City Public Schools, you know, a lot of your staffing goes through the Office of Programs for Exceptional Children, or OPEC, as it's called in Virginia Beach. And it, you know, every school district in the Hampton Roads area is going to have a section of it very similar to OPEC in the beach. We're very fortunate at my school at Bayside is we're actually overstaffed by 2 special education teachers. We also have a behavioral management room, which is staffed by a special education teacher, and it specifically focuses on students who have emotional and social skill needs and need a lot of work in that area. So I'm very fortunate in the sense that at my school we are probably overstaffed and a little bit over budgeted, but we make it work effectively. That also comes when you get your paraprofessionals and your special education teacher assistants. I'm also overstaffed a little bit in there as well. And we make sure that they are, as I mentioned before, the student that may be having services in inclusion math and inclusion English but doesn't have anything in his social studies or science class. I'm at the point, because of the way my staffing is, that I'm able to put a paraprofessional in those classes, so that student who's used to having 2 adults in all their classes in their math and English class are going to then have it in their science and social studies class. So, but obviously the budget drives everything.
Right.
You know, I'm sure that I have colleagues around the city that would love to be overstaffed with special education teachers. Unfortunately for us, we are.
I understand. What other considerations are necessary for ensuring that students with disabilities succeed in the inclusive classroom?
Well, like I said, and I mentioned this before, you take for granted that your general education teachers know how to educate special education students, and that's simply not the case. The number one thing is, you know, proper collaboration with the special education teacher. And in times when there's all kinds of added pressures and time constraints put on the general education teacher, the ability to effectively co-plan with the special education teacher just does not exist.
Okay.
So making sure that you're providing your general education teachers and your special education teachers an opportunity to collaborate so that they can modify that instruction to provide specially designed instruction, not only for the special education students in the class, but for the general education students as well. You know, a lot of times you see situations where, you know, those general education students that might be on the fence are really thriving in that inclusive classroom because of the various effective co-teaching models that are being implemented. So making sure that you're providing those general education teachers with the tools they need to succeed as well is very important.
Okay. Well, great, John. Thank you for taking time tonight to answer these few questions. And it definitely has helped me gain a little more insight into the environment that you deal with as an administrator. And it's been greatly appreciated. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Best of luck to you, Kyle.
Thanks.